Welcome to Sane-ish, the podcast for people healing from trauma, addiction, abuse, mental health struggles, grief, narcissists, and every other flavor of chaos life can throw at you. And somehow still functioning, mostly. I'm your host, Holley Broughton, survivor, truth teller, boundary setter, and proud member of the Still Healing, Still Hilarious Club. Around here, we don't do shame or embarrassment. We don't do perfection. Just real talk, dark humor, hard truths, and a whole lot of hope. Because sanity is overrated. And healing? That shit is messy. This is Sane-ish. Let's get into it. Disclaimer. On the Sane-ish Podcast, we discuss personal stories of alcoholism, addiction, mental health, chronic illness, narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, parental alienation, grief, loss, homelessness, as well as many other forms of adversities in life. Our intention is to be inspirational, educational, identifiable, and resourceful. The views and experiences shared are in no way meant to praise or condone any illegal or harmful behavior. This content is for educational purposes only and not intended as professional advice. If you or someone you know is struggling with any of the above, we strongly suggest seeking help from a qualified professional, support service, or hotline related to your specific issue. Hi, my Sane-ish peeps. Before we begin, I want to offer a gentle content note. Today's episode discusses parental alienation, family separation, and the emotional impact this experience can have on parents and children. Some of the topics may touch on grief, loss, trauma, court involvement, and mental health struggles. If you are an alienated parent, grandparent, family member, or a child who has experienced family conflict or someone navigating recovery or emotional healing, please listen in a way that feels safe for you. That may mean pausing, skipping parts, or coming back to this episode when you feel more grounded. You are not weak for needing breaks. You're human. And if this episode brings up any heavy feelings, I encourage you to reach out to a trusted person, a support group, or a mental health professional. This conversation is shared with care, compassion, authenticity, and the hope of bringing understanding, validation, and light to a topic that is way often misunderstood. Take what serves you and leave the rest. And remember, you are not alone. And one other thing I would like to convey is for those of you who are in the middle of parental alienation, please know that the alienators and their enablers use our children as game pieces or pawns because they are mad or they're retaliating or to cause hurt or to be selfish. And because of that, they have no idea what pain and hurt and torture and torment and emotional feelings that they are causing, not only for the targeted parents, but the ripple effects it causes on the extending family members. So, and the children as well. So I want you to know that if the roles were reversed and this was happening to them, it wouldn't be so funny. They wouldn't be elated. They wouldn't be relieved. They would be hurt. They would be tortured. They would be tormented. Their family would be torn, which shows you the lack of compassion and empathy that the alienators and their enablers have for parental alienation, even for their very own children. So I want to offer you the fact that we, as the Sane-ish Podcast, know exactly what you're going through. It is not funny. It is painful. We recognize that. We see you and we hear you. We know it is gut-wrenching and we know it is heartbreaking. And we're here for you. And we want you to know that your compassion lies here and your empathy lies here. So please know that. And you are not alone. And please take care of yourselves. So with that, peace, love, and be kind, because you never know when you're going to need it. So take care. And I hope you enjoy the episode, should you watch it all the way through. So take care. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Sane-ish Podcast. I'm Holley Broughton, and today we are talking about my favorite topic, parental alienation. And so today I have a friend who was referred to me by my good friend, Rael. It pains me to have another parent who has gone through this type of thing, but I do believe it's important that we share our stories so that this stuff gets out and people understand what we as parents go through. And so today on the podcast, I have Rich Rose, and he is going to go through his story. And he's first going to start off with the basis of how he grew up as a foundation, and then he's going to let us know like what happened, and then what he's been through and where he's at now. So, hey, Rich, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you said yes.
Thank you, Holley, for inviting me. This has been a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah. Well, listen, tell us, first of all, tell us like how you grew up.
Well, I grew up in the middle of like central Pennsylvania. My mom and my biological father actually separated before I was even a year old. And for almost my entire life, I've known my stepdad to be as the father role in my life. Unfortunately, there was a lot of family tension. I can't say that it was directly related to him being my stepfather, but there was a little bit of domestic violence going on. And it eventually led to me leaving my family whenever I was 16 and essentially emancipating myself. My parents ended up, I want to say, well, it was around 2005. They sent me to one of those behavioral modification facilities, like a boot camp. And that was the final straw in our relationship, I believe. Now, moving forward from my childhood, I expected to have a much better relationship with my children than my family had with me. I was actually surprised that my first child I had with my ex was, but I was 20 years old when that happened, and I didn't know what to do. And I did have a better relationship with my mom than I did with my stepfather. She had later caught on that there was some like domestic violence issues going on in her home. Right after my son was born, there was just unreconcilable differences between me and his mother, and we had to separate. And right from the beginning, I was pushed into a situation where I wasn't given access to my child. So the only option that I felt necessary was to file for custody. And for me to even request any custody, I had to have a DNA test done and prove that he was my child, in which I did. And then what made things so much more complicated was during that process, she came to my house, destroyed the place. I had to call the police. And I was the one that was arrested in my own house, and she was just told to go home. And There was, yeah, it was a rough situation. She so much as dropped my son off at a friend's house, at one of her friend's house. She talked my great grandparents into giving me a key, or giving her a key to my house, and explained to them that I gave her permission to get the key so that she could pick up belongings that she's never had there. So it was kind of like a planned situation, and it didn't help that her family was connected with the community and the police department also. So that made things a little complicated.
Yeah.
Eventually she pled guilty to two different harassment charges as a lesser charge, but it says right next to the charge that it was subjecting another person to physical violence. So that was a little bit rough. Unfortunately, the courts at the time, they believed the standard, what I call a 3-line order, and I had to drop a PFA against her so that I was even able to see my
Let me stop you. What exactly is a PFA?
protection from abuse.
Okay.
I had active protection from abuse order against my son's mother
Okay. Gotcha.
because of threats and different violence, physical violence and things like that. There was, well, the 3-line orders that I was saying about are pretty standard from what I understand now. That's almost standard across the entire industry. Is primary custody goes to mom, visits with dad, and you flip-flop holidays. And that's something that I was kind of stuck with. And over the course of time, I accepted it. Now, in the beginning, I was constantly trying to contest orders and demand fairness or equality in the matter. And the hardest part, I think, for it was I made a commitment to my son before he was even born that I would never take his mother from him. So in the back of my mind, that was always the goal, wasn't to have her punished or prosecuted, essentially, uh, like a co-parenting alliance for even though we couldn't live together or be around each other for any necessary part of time, we would at least be able to co-parent well.
Sure.
And that was 16 years ago. Today is actually my son's birthday, and we still haven't been able to get along, essentially. I've filed several contempts for her not following custody orders. We've had positive changes in our custody order, such as my introduction to a co-parenting application on our phones so that we can communications and like schedules, calendars, notes, and those kind of things. That way there wasn't any he said, she said, or confusion with text messages or phone calls that way. She never really used that program. And I was gag ordered from filing contempts. In 1 year, there was 43 violations of the custody order, and she was always just given a slap on the wrist. And I was told that I was overreacting, even though I wasn't getting custody time and no communications with my child were even being met. And yeah, it's been pretty rough. I will say alienation in my case is that I recognized signs when he was around 4 years old. And I didn't understand the actual impact. And I thought that I had made a corrective action up until almost 2 years ago, this February, where February 2024 is the last that I've actually got to see my son.
Oh, okay. So you haven't seen him in 2 years?
Right.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was made on a claim that I severely and emotionally traumatized my son at the age of 14, essentially by telling him I wasn't going to argue with him over the phone, and that I'd see him the following day for our custody exchange, and we could all talk about whatever issue he had. And during that custody exchange, I was told it was the last time I was ever going to see him. And I didn't understand. She said that I called him a stupid idiot a year and a half prior to that. And it didn't make any sense. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And then it I tried to file a contempt and a special relief saying, hey, this is a clear issue here. that I can't address on my own, and I needed the court's involvement. And I was blocked from the court. And roughly 3 months later, I received the same kind of petition filed against me. And I was only given a 3-day notice. I wasn't served a copy of the complaint or the papers. I showed up to court not knowing what the complaint even was. And that's how I found out that it was essentially a disciplinary action that didn't even involve any yelling, screaming, name calling. I mean, my son called me at 9 o'clock at night, screaming and yelling, calling me a liar. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to have this conversation over the phone. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll all talk about it. No, we'll get it straightened out. But it was used against me as a weapon. And yeah, I'm still working on getting my temporary visit suspension lifted yet.
Yeah. So let me take you back to like when he was 4. How, or earlier than that? When did you start seeing the sign other than her breaking into your house, and were there any other signs like with your child that you started noticing earlier,
There was, between the age of 2 and 4, his personality completely shifted. He used to be like super happy and excited, talked like verbally communicated,
Mm.
like loudly, like a happy child. He used to be excited to play with things and engage with other people. And then I want to say almost overnight, but I only got to see him twice a month. So what happens in 2 days for me is essentially a month for him.
Right.
He started shutting down, shutting off during custody exchanges. He'd be fine during the exchange, but on the transport to my house or to the exchange point, he would just cry or quite literally get sick to the stomach. And he didn't talk about it too much. He got real shy and quiet. And I think the most frustrating part was if I take him to family functions, he would literally just stand there, even if he was in the middle of everybody's way, like moving around. You would have to physically tell him to like pick his foot up and put it in front of the others so that he could walk. He would just stand anywhere. And he wouldn't engage with other children in the family. He wouldn't sit with anybody in the family. And that went on for about 4 to 6 years. So it wasn't until he was around 10 to 12 before he kind of opened up a little bit more. And I think it around that time I was doing some advocacy work with other fathers that were struggling and trying to better themselves for their family. And I used to take my son around with me to work around in the shop, work around the house or in the property, work on cars. He seemed to enjoy that and meeting different people. And I would not necessarily expose him to all of the traumas and the horrors of what goes on in family court, but share with him the way that the laws in the family law apply to us because we are involved with it. And he seemed to grasp a lot of that. And I was actually excited for it. But here when he just after his 14th birthday is like, oh, well, I'm 14, so I'm able to tell you I don't want to see you anymore. And that came out of nowhere. And it's almost as if everything that I've ever told him was a lie. He was using wild words, and I've never had to really discipline him in any way. I've never had to really yell at him. I've never had to like get loud. I've never had to have really complicated conversations with him or educational disciplinary conversations, because that's how we normally do things in my family. Is that there's no yelling, there's no like actual punishments. Like punishment is to learn what you did.
Yeah.
So like we talk things out in our family. And he was using he was saying that I was manipulating him. I was a liar about a bunch of things. And the only thing that made sense was just a few weeks prior to that phone call that he made to me. I had to file contempt charges against his mom for falsifying a child support situation that exceeded my entire household income. And I think maybe there was an argument or something, or a conversation that he managed to be involved with in some way, whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. But I think that his perception of that is what triggered this whole pivotal moment. I do know that over the years, his family, an extended family, has talked quite negatively about me, make me out to be somebody that I'm not. My son has never once been permitted to bring his schoolwork to my house. I've asked to see what he's learning in school. They don't give that to me. He's had a school computer for quite a while. Even whenever he has like writing assignments and things like that, I've never got to see any of them, any artwork. He says that he's not allowed to bring that. And after so many years, I guess it's become a normal thing for us to just simply accept that. But looking back on things, I see all of the warning signs that I can't necessarily say that I've ignored, but I've thought were less severe than they actually were.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you, now that it's come this far, now that your son is 16 as of today, like, how would you personally define parental alienation as it pertains to your personal experience?
Well, alienation to me, I think not only with the research and the interactions with professionals in the environment, but my own experience as well. I believe that alienation as a primary definition is when one parent is being treated as an entirely negative entity without any actual reason for personal safety of the child, such as if grandma says don't listen to your dad, that could be even its simplest form of an alienating factor. But to persuade a child to not listen to or not engage with an actual parent, I believe that that is the fundamental issue that determines what alienation is. And it, a perfect example is children in our family. We don't even associate with members of the family that have been involved with crimes involving children. Now, we don't prevent them from knowing who they are or the things that they've done in their life that are positive. But we explain to them that there's a reason that you can't see them. There's a reason that we don't communicate with them. And we kind of leave it there. But it's open to interpretation. There's an open door for that so that our children are able to, as they get older, they can make a decision on their own whether they want to involve themselves with them in any way. But at least they're informed on how to protect themselves for any situation that would arise.
Mhm.
An example is my stepfather, like I said, with the domestic violence issues. When I was growing up, after I left, my mother eventually divorced him, and there was other victims of family violence, but there was accused sex crimes involved too, and that sort of solidified my reasoning for keeping my family away from him. There was no reason for us to have a relationship, but my my son's mother in the beginning, which this was years after I separated from them, she demanded that I had supervised visits at their home, and that to me was like a big red flag, and the courts didn't seem to recognize that, even though there was documented CYS reports for both my mother and my father. So having to be forced into an uncomfortable situation right from the beginning when my child was only 6 months old, that was detrimental, I believe, for the actual development and growth of my son.
Yeah, that's another question I was going to get into. What red flags did you notice throughout that time? What red flags showed up for you? What also what were, and apparently there were, but were there a lot of flying monkeys in your story?
Yeah, in the beginning, when my son was like, for the first year of my son's life, I was forced to go to my parents' house that wanted nothing to do with me. They when I complained about the abuse that was going on, from my stepdad when I was a teenager. When I would tell my mother would go to him and he would say, "Oh, he's a liar." So my family labeled me a liar in my young adulthood. And after not talking to them for several years and being forced to use them as a mediator for my son, that situation was a little difficult. And I was constantly looked at like everything I was doing was wrong or improper. And they didn't want to see that I wasn't the problem, and I was trying to actually be responsible and raise my child. In the beginning, she contested it altogether. She tried to say that he wasn't my child, that he belonged to any of several other people. There was threats against me and my family, our lives. Brake lines were cut on my company truck on camera, and the police said, "Well, sorry." Uh, they actually told me that my cameras were illegal, and because they were illegal, that the evidence was inadmissible. All of my lug nuts were taken off of my truck at one point and thrown in the bed of the truck in my driveway, I guess, which I didn't find out until halfway down the road on my way to work when my wheels fell off the car or the truck. My wife and I, we got essentially chased out of our hometown, and I moved roughly 2 hours away, but it was an easy drive to go back and forth. I like driving, so that wasn't an issue. And she used that as leverage for me not to have more than every other weekend. I was an on-call tow truck driver, and there was a few times where I couldn't make a custody exchange at the specified time, and I would try to negotiate, or I'd communicate that, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to make it at this time. We need to change the time." And my son's grandfather once texted me back and said, "Okay, well, I'll still see you at the same time then. I'm still bringing him. And if you're not there, then you're not there." So there's been a few times where, not because I've abandoned my child and not shown up, but because I had already said, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to do this because of my work schedule." They've brought my child to a custody exchange point just to be ghosted intentionally, and
Mm-hmm.
that's had a big impact on things.
Yeah.
I've noticed it a few different times where my child's attitude changes, and there's not a whole lot of time that I actually have with him that I'm able to rebuild a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And when we counted how many days have I actually seen my son from the day that he was born, has been just under 365 days, which is less than a year of his entire life. I've not spent a year with him. And I've had a custody order since the day he was born. So
Wow.
knowing that he's able to get educated by a public education system and have more time involved in the public education system than he does in 1 year than he does with me for almost 16 years is a little troubling. And I believe that the way that that's set up, it's only going to breed complicated relationships with non-custodial parents for children. And that's one of the things that I'm aiming to help change in the environment with other families, is to help other parents understand that they're not alone in this. Even though we've all been led to believe that it's taboo to talk about, everybody's situation is unique in their own way.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the way that the professionals handle things, they handle us all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Legislation isn't the only answer. It comes down to the family unit. We need to be more aware of what's going on, the education related to how to handle a separation. I want to say one of the most devastating things that I have personally gone through is everything's perfectly fine one day, and the next day it's not, and you don't know what to do, and you're told that there's nothing you can do, just simply go for the ride. And I've seen too many parents that have been forced into a situation where they've had to step away from their estranged child. Excuse me. And that to me is really heartbreaking, because even if my son doesn't ever talk to me for the rest of my life, I always make sure that he knows that he has a space. He always has a space here, no matter what tensions there are. The idea of either financially or from the burden, the struggles and the weight on people's shoulders. Some people can't handle the stress of it. It's contributed to so much of what I believe is wrong in society these days. I believe in feminism. I really do. I believe that uh, there's a lot of imbalance between mothers and fathers as far as their responsibilities and relationships with their children. And when one of those are missing, the other one can't make up for what's lost.
Mhm.
The older ways, or the, I'm calling them primitive, the primitive ways where women are the ones that nurture, teach, and rear a child essentially through adolescence. I believe that things have changed. Men are perfectly capable of doing the same thing that women are, and women are perfectly capable of doing the same thing that men are. However, you can't have just one person responsible for all of it. It's like it takes a village to raise a family kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I take family kind of personal, being that my relationships with everything that I knew the world was supposed to be like as a child compared to being an adult. I've looked at family as uh, essentially like a big compound where we have our own government.
Mhm.
Everybody has a job to do, a responsibility. We all work together. We coexist together. Even my wife and our two children, we all have differences by all means, but how we handle our day-to-day obstacles or challenges is generally a group effort. Now, everybody has opportunity for privacy, and that was something that was brought to my attention with my son, was what kind of privacy do I give him? Thinking back on it, I've probably given him too much privacy, but as a young teenager, it's kind of hard to tell, because when I was a teenager, I didn't want to be home, so I was always out with my friends or riding my bike and out in the neighborhood, those kind of things. And my son is a little bit less social than that, and he'd rather be on the computer, play video games, or read books.
Yeah.
So once he started getting into that attitude, I'm not saying I went hands off, but I wasn't holding his hand as much. Like while he was younger, I used to explain to him that it's not my job to carry you, and it's not my job to do it for you, but I'll hold your hand and I'll walk the stairs right beside you, kind of thing. And I think as he started becoming a young adult, his independence kind of made, I believe that there was a fundamental obstacle that he wasn't able to bridge the gap between what he was missing from his childhood to him becoming a young adult. And blindly, I believe that he needed more of my attention than what he was actually asking for. It's like I relate it to a rebellious teenager. It's like, oh, I don't want to be with my parents. I don't want to go hang out with them and their friends. I want to go hang out with my friends. I didn't really get in the way of that. Whenever I would ask him who he's hanging out with or those things, I believe he was influenced not to share that kind of information with me. Similar to like the schoolwork.
Well,
The way that he would argue.
I think kids today are a little different than when we were kids. I think they're much more social media, more so than being outside and riding bikes, and they're
Oh
much
yeah.
more game focused. And so it's a little hard to get them more active and in the community and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not, I don't necessarily think that would be your fault. I think that's just kind of a social thing now. If you want to call it that, if you want to call it
Yeah.
so, it's not really social.
Yeah, the modernization of.
Yeah, it's just kind of what it is today. But let me ask you something. How has this whole thing, how has it affected your mental and emotional how has it played on your mental emotional state? Has it affected your mental and emotional state going through all this at all?
Yeah, yeah. I want to say in the early years, I was kind of all over the place. So on like constantly trying to solve a problem without encompassing the whole picture. I was narrowly focused, especially in the very beginning. I was like, wait, they're taking my child. I should take my child or try to do the same. And I quickly realized that that was like an instinct retaliatory response. And
Mhm.
being able to sit back and say, "Hey, wait, we need to come together as an like an agreement on this and co-parent." That's when I was able to embrace like my emotional response much better. Now the threats, the harassment, the physical violence against me, that had its own um mental obstacles, emotional ones as well, because essentially I was being threatened that all I needed to do was just sign over my rights and just walk away. And I made a promise to my child that I would never do that. So I was taking the physical hits, um, knowing that it was expected. Now, with my son's behavior and the constant appearances in court, the interference with my day to day life, my jobs, my family, those kind of things, I, for the most part, I can't say that I've ignored them, but I've looked at it from a bigger picture and said that these are things less to worry about than things that are going to affect other stuff down the road. So I kind of just pushed it back. When it came to recognizing an alienation issue, I believe at that point it was already too late to correct or try to treat a problem. It wasn't until after the last time that I saw my son that I had realized, like, if I should have done this differently, I should have done that differently. How would I have known this? Or I
Mhm.
should have known that. There was a lot of doubts going on. One of my first reactions to it was to try to explain or defend myself.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I didn't know what I was trying to enforce or defend uh, for several months, and then me basically coming out and saying, "Hey, this is everything that I've got." I was again looked at as being the bad guy. And thinking back, there's probably a couple things that I probably shouldn't have said or shouldn't have done. But when it comes to family and education, I probably wouldn't change anything, even with the rest of my children, because at the end of the day, the truth is probably most important,
Oh, sure.
especially if there is lies involved. Now, I never would have had to come out and say, "Hey, here's the history of all the negative stuff," if the negative stuff wasn't used to falsely turn everything around as if I'm the bad guy. I don't quite understand the emotional attachment, probably because of the way that I've handled my own personal traumas as a child. But knowing that there is people out there that are able to help is definitely important to me. And when actual separation happened, I looked at my wife and I said, am I doing something that even I'm not aware of? Am I actually being what they're describing me? And she said no. And her and I both decided that it was important that I actually got a mental health evaluation, and just to make sure, because sometimes we're blind to our own behaviors.
Yeah. Sure.
And it was definitely I was nervous about all of it. I was like, wait, maybe I am a problem, you know? And I was actually cleared. It was explained to me by the psychologist and therapist that I'm handling things much better than most families do, but I'm desensitized to the situation a little bit because I've been helping, involved in the environment of helping other families through these kind of struggles, more or less to co-parent effectively rather than any specific issue. Um, there's been families from all over the country, even in other countries over in Europe and Australia, that I have relationships with that they get put in the same situations where uh, sometimes an ex is willing to cooperate and co-parent effectively. Sometimes they're not. A lot of people are not expecting that. They obviously haven't experienced the way that family courts work prior. But when there is an inevitable separation of a family, nobody knows what to do. And that environment is, like I said, it's kind of dulled down my emotional response to it. But I will say the holidays are a little bit difficult because I'm not even getting a phone call. At best, I'm having a text message. One of the probably most profound things in my matter is my custody was petitioned to be removed based off of an argument over the phone, which, like I said, the argument actually didn't happen. But through that court process, the only thing that she was asking for as a possible remedy was, well, it's still actually a current order, but she only wants me to have communication over the telephone, and she doesn't want supervised visits. She doesn't want any visits at all, and no third party contact, which means any member of my family, they can't even communicate either. So I believe that should be clear. That she removed custody because she didn't like a conversation that I had over the phone. And then she's okay with me only being able to have phone calls with them. That just seems like, at face value, that seems like an issue. I've proposed family high conflict divorce and family counseling. I've gone through all these classes. She's never done it. She won't agree to them either. And now we're in a situation where, since he turned 14, he's been able to make a choice on what he does with his healthcare also. And he actually I just found out over the summer that 2 years ago he signed himself out of therapy. So he's not even getting what I would consider effective healthcare. Moving forward, the best that I can do is send him a text message every once in a while. And like I said, today's his birthday. So 6 o'clock in the morning, I send him a happy birthday text. It's really difficult to actually have conversations with him because through text message, he either doesn't respond or he finds a reason to bring up an argument or complain about something. So I keep my messages short, remind him that we're here, we love him, and I'm always available for a phone call. And he did respond. He said thank you for the happy birthday message today. It's a little bit different, different than what I want. I also know that I can't. He's at the age right now that I can't expect that if I force him into a relationship that he doesn't want to have, that's probably more damaging in the long run.
Yeah.
And I want him to be able to have a productive, that his entire life I want to be useful for him. And if he goes through, if I interfere with his college goals, for example, like if I were to actually pursue the avenues that are available to me, just because they are available doesn't mean that they're the best option. But as an example, if I were to petition for full custody and present all of the documentation and support my argument, and if the courts would actually take him from her and give him to me, that would be devastating to him.
Sure.
He's already in college accredited classes in high school, and I live in a different zip code, so he would have to change school districts, curriculum plans. He would lose all of his friends that he's grown up with. I mean, there's a lot of things involved that the average person doesn't really consider. Just because it's fair to me doesn't mean it's fair to him. That's mentally the hardest thing that I've that I have to deal with is knowing that options that are good for me and good for other members of the family are actually in some ways dangerous to him and in his fundamental development. Whether he goes to college, which we believe that he is definitely going to college, but I don't want my relationship or the courts to interfere with his professional development or his own family development moving forward. So when he gets married, if he does, I don't want him to have the same relationship issues that I've had, clearly, but I want him to be able to understand that just because his mom and dad had such a polar opposite view on things doesn't mean that he has to take anybody's side or treat his future family in the same way.
Right.
So, like I said, it's the hardest thing is knowing that the options that are there to help me and help his mom, I don't believe that those avenues are even an option. So I've had to accept that my visits are essentially done, but whenever he's older, that I'm at least somebody that he can contact, and I make sure that I have resources available for him for any time that he would need them, whether it's his bedroom, if he needs help with paying bills or getting transportation somewhere, getting to school, those kind of things, that those resources are available to him.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer on fundamental needs are fundamental for a reason. And we as individuals don't understand how much we actually need the support of other people around us until there's something missing that we need. And
Right.
I just hope that in the future that he'd at least be interested in showing up for dinner sometime.
Would be awesome. So, how do you? I can only speak for myself, but how do you handle the living grief of your son? How do you handle that?
Well, I suppose
I mean, that's what I call
I've
it.
never really had an opportunity to grieve in any traditional sense. I feel really good about the position that I'm in almost every day whenever I'm contributing towards the community.
Mhm.
But when there's laws like proposed legislation changes, I participate in as much of that as I possibly can.
Mhm.
I participate in like court watchers programs. I I help other families that are struggling with the troubled teen industry. When people need support in the courtrooms, I try to make myself available so that I can help them with those. I'm not an attorney, so I don't exactly give legal advice, but I do provide resources that help pro se litigants at least defend themselves or navigate the court process and understand what the process and procedures are and the rules. That's actually helped a lot. I know my son several years ago was with me for a Stop Parental Alienation march. We got matching T-shirts. Him and I still have his shirt and my shirt, and every year I still wear it on that day to commemorate it. Remembering all the times that we've had, it's not. I don't look at it the same as if I've buried my child.
Right.
There has been a few days where I've actually felt that, and communicating with others that have is definitely not the same unless you've actually experienced it. And I have a new appreciation for some families that I know that have actually signed over their rights and been forced to walk away from their children. It's like when I first started this, yeah, it had an impact on me, an emotional impact on me, knowing that other people were being forced to do that. In some sense, in the back of my mind, maybe I believed that that wouldn't happen to me, or I had the way to prevent that outcome from happening. And ultimately, I feel like there wasn't anything that I could have done that could have actually prevented any of this. So emotionally, I feel a lot better knowing that I've done what I can. I'm not like degrading or beating myself myself up over decisions that I've made. I only look forward, and every day is a new day. Anytime that I have something new going on, I try to share it with my son. It's like, hey, how's your week going? This is what I've done this week. And I don't look for positive feedback from that. I do it so that he knows that I'm thinking of him,
Yeah.
even if it's something that doesn't matter to him or isn't relevant. It's one of those, hey bud, I'm still thinking of you. That actually brings up my relationship with my real father. After my son was born and before my mom divorced my stepdad, I managed to track down a half brother of mine
Mhm.
and got a hold of my real father. He had explained to me that my mother had kept him from even trying to find me or reach me for several years. And he was trying, he didn't know how to find me or contact me. It was an amazing reunification
Rip.
way when I was able to reconnect with him. And even to this day, his birthday is actually January 1st. He sent me a text and he says, I miss you so much. I wish I could just give you a hug. I replied back to him and I said, I know exactly how you feel. I
Yeah.
absolutely do. When now him and I have been in constant contact for roughly 15 years now. There was a few times where he was in a bad position and I would help him out. He's lived like in the middle of the country and I lived over on the East Coast. And there was one time where he essentially was homeless and he drove his vehicle that was like not running very well with like a tow behind trailer that he built as like his little house or shed. And he literally drug it even without the wheels when the axle fell off. He drug it from Kentucky or Tennessee all the way to Pennsylvania. I gave him a place to, I said, look, I don't care how you get up here. You get up here, I'll help you. It was great. And he was so worried that everything that he's done in his life or things that my family growing up told me that were so horrible about him. He was so worried that I was gonna use that kind of thing against him. And I told him, I said, look, you're my dad. I said, I don't care about anything else. Everybody is responsible for their own actions. And as far as I'm concerned, the only time I've ever talked to you, you've told me you love me. It's like you've never hurt me. You've had no reason for me to tell you that I wouldn't communicate with you. And
Right.
when it, to me, it didn't matter that he was jobless. It didn't matter if he was an alcoholic or a drunk. The only thing that was really important to me was in our house, rule number one is safety.
Yeah.
Safety of ourselves and safety of others. I think that was the biggest thing that made him just glow. He went from just a depressed middle-aged man to happy and excited to be a grandfather and everything else. And
That's awesome. That's an awesome.
we have had some separation with some things. Like I said, well, it came down to safety, and it wasn't necessarily his fault, but we've had some clashes where personalities didn't mix at times. And I told him, I said, look, I was like, I'm not going to hurt you, and I'm not just going to turn my cheek and walk away from you just because you made a mistake. I was like, I still love you. You're still my dad. I'm still going to call you. And he didn't seem to understand that at first. He's like, well, I made a mistake. Why would you? It's like, no, your family.
Yeah.
Family's supposed to look out for each other and help each other grow. So I'm not saying that I will have that relationship with my son, but I know that if I don't leave that window open or the door unlocked for that availability, then I probably would be a little bit more uh, like depressed or emotional about things. I know
Yeah.
that there comes a point in every family where children move off or grow up and put distance between themselves and their parents. And unfortunately, in my case, this has happened earlier than usual. But I have to look at it from a similar perspective. Just because we don't get along doesn't mean that we can't be there for each other
Right.
and
So,
learn from it.
Rick, so what is your purpose today? I know that you said you're pretty involved in the community and legislature and and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
What do you what what do you feel your purpose is today?
I'd like to be I want more exposure for the education of others. Like I said before, that family law or family court, anything family court related has always been kind of like shunned upon or taboo to speak of outside
Mhm,
of the courtroom. And I believe that it because people aren't able to express their struggles or work with other people, that's creating a bigger societal issue. What's sad is the depression end of things. It's changed the family dynamic, and changing the family dynamic is effectively going to cripple society as a whole. Uh,
mhm,
so if I'm able to come forward and share my experiences, my story essentially with others, I would like other people to come forward and share theirs. At the very least, if I am able to help my children or somebody else's children avoid the conflicts that family court can create, then we'll have less people that are struggling or separating or tearing apart our families. I really do believe that it is a system designed to thrive and benefit from the separation of families. And I believe that the system should be used and utilized in a way that joins families. So even our program workers, if they aren't educated on what they're doing is wrong or the effects of what they are doing, even if they're unknowingly, then we're able to communicate as a whole within our counties and municipalities that our mindset is set differently on how we view families.
mhm,
So if our county workers that are like our service providers that are supposed to be creating the custody arrangements or the guardians ad litems, the mediators, if they are able to already know that, hey, these are different signs of issues that we need to address, then we would be able to have more effective co-parenting plans
mhm,
in family law. And ultimately, comes back to the parents. So if the parents don't know that there's a problem out there, or even their own actions, like I said with my mental health, I had to question my own decisions to make sure that I wasn't blind. My wife and I joke about nose blindness. So yeah, if we can, I'm not saying it takes one person or it takes an entire village, uh, coming forward and being able to share uh, what 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 goes on, some of the
mhm.
worst versus some of the best case scenarios, then we're able to help families cope with separations. Unfortunately, 2026 right now. And when family court first started, it was designed as a protection for domestic violence victims. And today we don't have the same situations as we had in the 1800s. The family dynamic is completely different. There was an imbalance of power within the family monarchies, or the family governments. Period. Men were responsible for pretty much anything physical, and women were responsible for anything mental and emotional. And where we're at now is, I want to call it a balance, but it's perceived currently as an imbalance where mom is able to get more time, more effort, more leniency than fathers. And I don't want to say that I only support fathers, but I believe that if fathers had more fairness within the law, then we would have a much better ground to stand on. And having other people come forward will help us organize so that we can change the policies, the procedures, the rules that allow the third party involvement within our families whenever an unfortunate separation does occur. This goes with like CPS, custody, child support. All three are completely separate, but they are all very well determining factors for how families are able to operate.
Yeah. So, all right, last question. So, is there anything that you can, or you would want to relate to someone who is starting out in someone now just starting out in parental alienation? Like, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I'd look at it no different than my own children. If you're experiencing a family separation for the first time as a parent, it'd be important to carry a notebook, keep track of the different things that you recognize. Try not to be negatively emotional about it, like overly emotional. It's perfectly normal to be bothered by it, by all means, but the earliest signs of alienation are just as important as the later signs also. There is professional help with counseling, but it's important that you're able to communicate and establish when alienation is happening and develop a plan to how to go about preventing the dissolution of a child's relationship with either parent. I know in some cases the other parent is probably a terrible person, but I've even considered if my wife, for example, would be put in jail for the rest of her life, I couldn't keep my children from sharing a relationship with her. Uh, Obviously, it would have to be handled in a different way than like a custody exchange. There wouldn't be something like that. But from a fundamental perspective, there's a mom and a dad, or there's two parents. You got to find a way to co-parent. And one of the best things that I've ever done for myself was I put myself through high conflict co-parenting programs, like education programs, and they don't cost very much. They could take as long or as short amount of time to complete as fits your schedule. At the end of the day, do everything that you would expect to be treated towards you. It's essentially the golden rule. Be safe to yourself, be safe to others, and treat other people the way that you want to be treated.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rich. I know it's not a fun, parental alienation's not fun at all to go through, and especially with yours after 16 years, and especially with his birthday being today. But it seems like something good did come out of it with you meeting your own father. That's amazing. And by the way, my dad's birthday is also January 1st.
It's a small world.
I know, it's amazing. So, but anyway, yeah. And you know what? I never give up hope. Think and believe that our children will eventually come to the truth. I believe that.
I do too. I do worry sometimes though that the truth. I'm a firm believer that the truth always sets you free. But being a child, learning the truth on your own as a young adult in some form, without anybody to talk to, I think is probably the biggest issue for the child.
Oh, sure.
I know even in my own experience that my whole childhood, I was led to believe that my real dad was just some angry, terrible person. And my stepdad was so much better, right? So when I did find my real dad, I told him, I was like, there's nothing you can do that'll be worse than anything that's already happened.
Right.
Uh, I treat him as a person, rather than a rumor.
Right. And that's the thing is I think especially, with your son now and him being in the situation he's in, I think a lot of times when they're teenagers, they have to mature in order to understand, to start understanding what has transpired. And then they get curious to really want to know the truth sometimes. And that's when I think they come to realize, oh, maybe that's not what happened, because of what they were told. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
do believe I do believe they do come to the truth because the truth always comes out. The truth is the truth is the truth, I
right.
believe. So, but there are some that choose to stay in that. So it's I don't know. It's usually up to the big man. So that's who I leave it up to in my case. So
I do believe that it you can't like dwell and rely on things that you can't control.
that's all right.
When 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 this process for me contesting my custody situation is temporary. They're temporary orders, but it's been in effect for over 2 years. When this all started, I essentially come down to what keeps me calm and structured is I can only do what I can do, and anything out of my control, I try not to even dwell on or worry about.
Yeah.
I can only worry about what I'm able to do. I know I've met a lot of families that they worry about all the what ifs, and I've seen it tear people down emotionally, physically. It's driven people to do unmentionable things. Uh, what makes it tolerable is knowing that if it's something that I have no control over, I try not to even worry about that. Like I said, I got to look at my separation as a growth, a family growth perspective, where my child believes that he is independent and on his own. The only thing that I'm able to do is tell them that he has a place to come back to if he needs it, and
Yeah.
I'm always here.
Yeah. I hear you. And I'm not here to, you know, uh, I don't think any parent is out there. I mean, that a targeted parent is out there to say, I'm better than you, who, whether it's the father or the mother, to say, I'm better because I'm not, I haven't seen or spoken to my daughter in about 6 years, but I'm not here to say, to persuade my daughter in any way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know, I just want communication with my daughter. I'm not trying to persuade her
Yep.
one way or the other. I just want I
As a
just
parent, that's difficult.
sure. I mean, but I just want to be a part of my daughter's life. That's it. I'm not trying to persuade her one way or the other. So it's not my
Yep.
my job, really. So I'm like, so I've just had to back off. So anyway, well, Rich, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to share your story and your, everything that you've been through and the hope that you have and all that kind of stuff and then meeting your dad too, that was incredible. But I appreciate it, and I do, as with all parents that are experiencing parental alienation, I do hope that he does find his way back to you.
I appreciate that.
That door is eventually, he crosses that pathway, he finds his way back. So
Yeah, it's one thing that I have noticed with actual alienated parents is we all have very similar mindset, and our emotions are often used as weapons against us because we're treated as if we're mentally unstable because we're trying to hold on to a relationship that is being taken from us. It's not something that was voluntarily given or deposed by actual legitimate means. I could understand if I was a violent offender, if I made threats of violence. Yeah, I mean those kind of things. I could completely understand. They'd be justifiable at least to question, but just to come out and say, "Well, we think that you're a bad person," to me, that's not good enough. And being able to sit back and say, "Hey, we're just trying to have access to our children just to communicate and be part of their lives," that means more to us than trying to hurt the other parent. Of course there's going to be tension with separate situations, but even in mine, I made a promise to my son before he was even born that I was going to be his dad and I wasn't going to take his mom from him.
mhm.
And even when there's been, like, terrible attacks against me and my family from his mother's side of the family, I still haven't I still haven't taken them from him because I mean, not only am I trying to maintain my promise, but how would a child recover from that if you were the reason that they had to go away? That kind of hurts. It kind of hurts. It's like that's like a knife in the chest. It's like just because I don't agree with his mom that I don't like her or any of that, that shouldn't have any effect on our relationship with the child. I've invited her to birthday parties. She doesn't come, but uh, I'm at least sensible in a way that I know that my son would enjoy to have both parents at one birthday party. You know,
Sure.
just instead of doing everything like twos, everything's in pairs. He has 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, and those 2 vacations, those kind of things. And I see from a child's perspective where that just that gets tiring.
Yeah.
So
I understand. And the thing is if the roles were reversed, they certainly wouldn't like it.
yeah,
I mean,
very true.
if the roles were reversed and they had the pain and the hurt and the torture and the torment and all of that stuff, it wouldn't be fun at all. But
You're absolutely true.
it seems like there's a lack of empathy on that side. It's like there's no empathy at all. No
You're right.
empathy or
An alienating parent, an alienating parent doesn't seem to comprehend the bystander effect, where like there's a backsplash of their actions, and they don't seem to accept responsibility for that. So that
Mhm.
if the tide was turned, they wouldn't know what to do. This goes for moms and dads alike. It's not discriminatory when it comes to an alienator. I've actually seen some cases where both parents alienated each other, and the children, as soon as they possibly could, they ran out of the family. Didn't communicate with their mom or their dad for several years. And to me, that's terrible. And it's almost common for disagreements to happen within intact households. And of course, there's going to be some jabs from one parent to the other through the child or even grandparents and relatives. It's like, oh, well, don't listen to them or like, for example, candy, like go to grandma's because she's going to spoil you with all the candies and cakes and stuff. And those are small things that truly are alienation behaviors, but it's the small stuff that leads into something bigger when there is a major disagreement where a child becomes a weapon against another parent
Mhm.
simply because personal interests and not the child's. And I believe that if it wasn't so easily disguised, and missed, it's missed by so many people. And even I thought that I would be immune from it, from all of my experience, all of my education. And I didn't imagine it to happen to me the way that it did, how it did. And even I was exposed to the same issues. So
Yeah.
it's kind of made me realize that this isn't something that one person is responsible for. It has to be a collective from both parents. One parent can be an alienator, 2 parents can be alienators. But if either parent has alienation involved, then it absolutely needs to have a third party involved with helping to alleviate those severe, in my opinion, it's brainwashing. It's a psychological training of a child's mind. And
Yep.
I mean, when I was a child, I didn't realize it. It's a learned behavior. And if we are teaching our children that it's okay to treat a parent negatively like that, then when they become a parent themselves, it's only going to be encouraged further for their children. So I believe that there's more that the divorce rate or unwed parents rates are extremely high compared to what they were even 50 years ago. And a lot of that has to do with the business model that family law has created over the last 25 to 40 years. And doing that, I've noticed a shift in the way that our economy and the rest of society has worked. So we've seen higher crime rates, higher depression rates, higher dependency rates, higher homeless rates, solely because our children aren't able to learn how to operate their adult life effectively in society for themselves and for their communities. In the next, well, even in the next 25 years, we're going to see a major setback where it's going to be almost impossible to have an intact family. And I'm actually trying to help people prevent that from happening, or at least slow it down as best that I possibly can. I offer uh, people that are having a bad day and just need someone to talk to. I'm always going to different training seminars with service providers. I try to stay up to date with domestic violence rules and policies in the community so that I'm able to relay that information to people that don't know that it exists. A lot of the people that I run into, they've never met anybody that's willing to talk about anything. They can't afford professional help. So I give them the materials or access to the materials that will benefit them. Dads that have gotten themselves into trouble for different reasons, I try to help them become better parents in their own eyes. It's like, say one dad is a recovering alcoholic or had domestic violence charges, and he still wants to try to work at getting access to his children. I help them navigate their process of recovery and essentially be the best dad that they can possibly be with what they have. And if they need job education, job training, those kind of things, access to transportation, I do what I can to help those people out. And being able to do that definitely makes me feel good. And I couldn't do it professionally because I don't taking other people's money that they don't have enough to afford their own situations. So why should I profit from my experience alone if it's only going to hurt somebody else? All the information that I find, uh, like even courtroom procedures and rules, uh, I've had moms come to me and thank me so many times. Dads come to me. I've had children that come up and give me hugs because they're like they consider me family, and being able to show people that it doesn't have to be a war zone is it's just so uplifting to me. And defending yourself is probably the hardest thing to do in today's family law environment, because the court looks at somebody based off of usually determining factors for custody. But at the end of the day, it seems like whoever has the most money usually wins. And it shouldn't have to be that way. But money is the first thing that's attacked, and attorneys seem to use that too. I publish, in a sense, all over social media as things become available. I do information requests. When there's legislative hearings and things, I get copies of those transcripts. I try to appear or testify. I try to get other families to come forward with me so that we can communicate to all three branches of government, because it seems like they don't communicate across the lines to each other. So that's our job. The average person doesn't understand uh, what our role in our government actually is. It's hard for changes to take place without people knowing how to do that. So I it's kind of fun to me. I've kind of made it, I can't say a career, but it's definitely a life choice of mine. It started whenever I got out of that behavioral modification boot camp. as a kid. When I got out of there, I told them kids, said, "Hey, I'm going to find a way to get you guys out." When I got out, I was not aware. Well, that was about the point in my life where everything that I thought I knew was wrong. Where we were told that when you needed help, you go to law enforcement, and the law enforcement was not there to be my friend. So I had to find another way to bring attention to some of the horrors that were going on in one facility, which later it took me 2 years to find my first other survivor. And when him and I met, we became like an unstoppable force. We collected more survivors and just kept coming forward, and then we essentially uncovered an entire network of these programs that were hiding behind religious protections, and government and law enforcement wanted nothing to do with it. So we had to do it all on our own. Over the years, following the trail towards the source of the problem, it's led us to family court and or family law. The fundamental issues that we have in today's society all stem from something that seems so simple, and it's the family unit.
Mhm.
If we can fix the family unit, then we'll be an unstoppable nation.
Yes, we
It
will.
truly is.
Yes, we will. Well, thank you, Rich. Listen, and I appreciate all of your advocacy and too. And I don't want that to go unnoticed either, because sometimes that just doing that also helps alleviate the pain and struggles that I know that's what helps me and
Oh
helps
yeah,
alleviate some of my pain. So, but anyway, thank you so much for sharing your story and being on the podcast and being vulnerable and letting people know uh, a part of what alienation has meant in your life, what has happened and what it's meant and how it's impacted in your life. So thank you.
you're welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to sit here and talk with you about it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And for those of you listening, we appreciate you staying with us and please stay for the next episode. So take care.